So it's
Mm-hmm.
not simply that
Mm-hmm.
that Mark says it, I believe it, that settles it. It's taking seriously
Right.
that there are various ways of reading this, and some are better than others. And here's why I
Mm-hmm.
read it this way. Or even more interesting, maybe, is there are various ways of trying to understand the world. There are various ways of trying to understand what
Yeah.
God is up to in the world. I'm going to take the Jesus story as my central way of making sense of the world, because I believe Jesus was raised
Mm-hmm.
from the dead, and that's God's vindication of Jesus and His way of reading reality. That's a commitment.
Yeah.
It's not a given. It's not objectivity. It's not neutrality. It's actually
Right.
me stepping out in faith, and I mean, quite literally, risking my life on a certain
Right.
assumption that I think is reasonable, but somebody else might not think so, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
they take a different narrative. That doesn't make them wrong or right. It makes them follow a different narrative that I believe, because of my understanding of Jesus and His resurrection, is not
Mm-hmm.
the narrative that leads to God's truth.
Yeah, and I think that what theological interpretation of Scripture particularly adds to that equation is that consciousness invites us to an intentionality about formation,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Because
right.
it's not
That's
just
right.
an idea that I have, a position that I take, but rather there is sort of laid out before me a variety of practices that can continue to form me into somebody who holds that view of the world, who takes Jesus's narrative as central or key or whatever. And so I'm not such a person just by virtue of the affirmation. I become such a person through this process of induction, this formative experience. And so you can do those things on purpose as a community to see more clearly.
Oh,
um, I'm still enamored of Richard Hayes's analogy of the eyes of faith,
yeah,
right? Being able to see with those eyes is a function of formation and faithfulness, so to
yeah.
speak.
That's really well said. I think there's a a circular or a reciprocity around beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and practices, so that beliefs lead to practices, but practices shape beliefs. And that, again, it's a way of talking about integrated human life. All of that in a
Yes,
community, of course.
all of that in a community. Yes.